Hello and welcome to Joy of Books with me, Miss Joy. Today's novel is Calico Joe by John Grisham. Released in 2011 and totaling 227 pages, it is a fiction story based around baseball. Sharing his views in the book today is author and teacher TC. I know that you love sports, so I am particularly interested in hearing your views on this book, TC. What can you tell us about Calico Joe?
Well, I can tell you that I really enjoyed reading this book, Miss Joy. It's about a character called Paul Tracy. Now, he grows up the son of a famous baseball pitcher, or should I say infamous baseball pitcher, Warren Tracey. Warren is not a good father, and he is a terrible husband as well. The novel begins with news that Warren, the father, is dying of pancreatic cancer, and the novel goes on to chart the rise of a young baseball player called Joe Castle. The book is loosely based upon a real-life person called Ray Chapman, a baseball player who still stands as the only man to be killed in baseball. The novel is essentially about this near-fatal baseball pitch, which is a throw to the batter, 30 years ago between his father and Joe Castle. So it's a really interesting narrative device, certainly in terms of storytelling. And of course, John Grisham is a master storyteller. So it really gripped me from the start. Now, I'm going to tell you straight off the bat, no pun intended, that, I'm not a baseball fan, but I'm not a great knowledge on baseball. Okay, it's not a sport that I've ever followed or even watched with any kind of great interest. So, don't be put off if you feel that you're in that same position, because the quality of the story is so good that the baseball aspects certainly don't hinder your enjoyment in any way. I mean, I will be honest, I didn't understand every aspect of the game as it was described in the book, but I could still enjoy it nonetheless. So it's sort of really about the passion that surrounds the sport of baseball, the kind of customs and traditions, not letting your opponent get one over on you. Of course, the passion is shown between the rival fans fighting. You've got the Chicago Cubs and the New York Mets. Talk about death threats here to families and the role of fate in sport as well. And sport does throw up these wonderful pairings, doesn't it? So the other character then, Joe Castle, this up-and-coming baseball player way back in the 70s. He's from Calico Rock, Arkansas, hence the nickname and the name of the book, Calico Joe. Again, the idea of this narrative style switching from the past to the present is also a very interesting device. Along with Grisham's choice here to blend fiction with non-fiction, he does this very cleverly, because I had heard of some of these famous baseball players, such as Willie Mays and Yogi Berra and so forth. So that gave a real believability to this novel, which perhaps it wouldn't have had it been completely fictional characters. And I'm sure that Grisham received a lot of help with the baseball side of things, the statistics, for example. Yeah, certainly. But I'll be honest, I did not expect this book to grip me as much as it did, but I can honestly say that it grabbed me and kept me reading throughout the whole book. It's interesting that there are these father-son relationships. For example, there's this nice contrast between Paul Tracy's family and that of his father's kind of 5 marriages or failed marriages, and the inclusion of this kind of toxic masculinity within sports, which of course you hear these stories, don't you, in the tabloids often for this. I like the way that they convey the older character, Warren, the fact that he'd abused alcohol and had a reputation for deliberately throwing the baseballs at people batting. And, you could believe that he was a villain in this story for sure. Again, Grisham is an incredible writer, so as you would expect, the narrative style is fairly slick. I like the fact that the dialogue's snappy. It's not too lengthy a read as well. Grisham must clearly be a big baseball fan from writing this, and he writes from the heart. And of course, this is really important in touching the reader's own heart. Characters were believable, certainly. And again, if you're a child who loves any sport, then you can understand the role of hero worship of a young upcoming player. You tend to find that the younger fans can empathise more, can't you, with these teenage stars, or in this case in their early 20s, and the hype that surrounds these players. So in this case with Joe Castle, every reporter and person wanted a piece of him. Females were sending, envelopes with letters and goodness knows what else in them. So yeah, I really like that aspect of this story for sure. And again, the fact that you've got Warren Tracey playing for the New York Mets and Joe Castle for the rivals, the Chicago Cubs in Major League Baseball, is a nice backdrop to this story. And again, I would reiterate, the baseball is about 30 or 40% of the book. The majority of it is about relationships. It's about the psychology of the game, and above all else, this riveting story. There is quite an interesting aspect to this in terms of the misfortune of injuries to players. And again, as a big soccer or football fan, I know that many players have had their careers cut short by injuries. But this Joe Castle, he'd broken all these records. Again, I will reiterate, it's fiction. He'd broken all these records, and of course, the near fatal pitch, which ended his career instantly, is the one that is remembered. The ending is quite sentimental. There is a meeting between the two former baseball players, and I thought that was nicely handled. It wasn't over the top. It was judged just about right. There's a reason why Grisham is such a prolific writer, and there's a reason why this book was the #1 bestseller in 2012. So, some people would argue that Grisham could publish his shopping list and achieve that accolade, but his writing is of such high quality that you really, you cannot ignore it, and you're lesser for not reading it, I would suggest. So, a highly recommended book, an absolute must-read for baseball fans. I'll say again, I am not a baseball fan in any way, shape, or form, but the story is so gripping and engaging, and the characters so believable. Even the ex-wives, for example, and the current wife, their mannerisms and their behaviour, all very, very relatable. So definitely check this book out. Baseball fan or not, you will enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much for your review of the book, TC. Yes, it is clear that you loved the book, and it is perfect for lovers of baseball. Calico Joe by John Grisham is available from all good book outlets. Thank you for joining me, and please remember to like and subscribe to my channel, Joy of Books.